It was Thomas and his son, walking hand in hand from the gate of Loudountown Elementary School. What was the boy holding in his hand? It was a red wooden box containing a hidden secret, a revelation that would make you burst, perhaps make your heart tighten if you heard me tell the whole story. In the distance about 50 meters away, Jasmine Crockett was sitting in her car, her gaze fixed on the box, her eyes clearly showing pride as she looked at the father and son. It seemed the things in the box had changed something significant. Then Jasmine picked up a thin envelope from the car compartment, the corner slightly folded. The sender's name was written in pencil, round, even strokes, Elijah Thomas. She looked at the letter, smiled, and then ordered the driver to go. Were these unusual behaviors of Crockett related, or did they hide a special story behind them? This story would perhaps be a memorable experience in the career of the Black Congresswoman, Jasmine Crockett, in the name of justice. About a month before the inspirational talk, in the same small town of Loudoun, Elijah's rented house with his father was nestled behind a laundry shop, less than 2 streets away from the elementary school. Every morning, Andre, Elijah's father, a black man, with a strong build, gentle eyes like a woman, who worked as an electrician, he liked to cook, would usually wake up early, neatly fold the blanket, then prepare breakfast for the 12-year-old boy. The small kitchen was always warmed by the clinking of dishes, the sizzling of the pan, the fragrant smell of toasted bread accompanied by the gurgling sound from the kettle. Elijah would often sit at the table, propping his chin with his hand, his eyes distant, sleepy, watching the slices of butter melt on the bread. "Do you have a test today, Eli?" Andre asked, flipping the egg. "I have a math test. It'll probably be as easy as pie, Dad." Elijah was always so confident. He was a very smart child. "Just do your best. I believe in you." Andre turned his head and smiled. Elijah grinned, took a sip of milk, grabbed his backpack for school, and didn't forget to wave goodbye to his father. A normal morning for the father and son always passed peacefully like that. In the evening, after washing the dishes and tidying up his notebooks, Elijah climbed into bed, pulled the blanket up to his neck, and leaned his head to the side. "Tell me about Mom. Anything is fine. I won't get bored." Eli started asking again. He often wondered about his mother. It seemed that in his eyes, he always longed for the image of a mother like other children. Eli's mother had not been with him since he was too young. Every image was carved from the stories his father Andre told, and from the perspective of the mornings he went to school. Andre sat on the edge of the bed, his hand resting lightly on the blanket, looking at the ceiling for a moment before starting. "Your mother liked to walk in the morning, not for exercise, but to listen to the birds. Once she said, 'If you start the new day with a fresh sound, that day will be wonderful.' Just like you," Elijah said. "You also open the window every morning." Andre nodded slightly, his eyes still on the ceiling. "Maybe. I learned that from your mother." Another day, Elijah asked, "Did Mom like to draw?" Andre chuckled. "Your mother didn't draw much, but she really liked pencils. She liked the sound when sharpening them, and the feeling of writing on white paper. She said those things made her feel very comfortable." Elijah hugged his pillow, his eyes blinking slightly, swallowing every word. He also liked to write in his diary, and every morning his father would sharpen pencils, even if it was just to write a few small things in a notebook. "Is Mom like me?" Elijah asked. Andre was silent for a few seconds, then replied, "I think, yes, but not in appearance, but in the way you both have strange, but very lovely habits." Elijah didn't ask any more questions, but in his heart, those answers didn't soothe his curiosity. They only added more strokes to his imagination. As he grew older, Elijah realized that the void of his mother was not only in his memories, but grew with him every day. He wasn't jealous. It was just that, if there was one thing he longed for more than any gift he had ever received, it was a real picture of his mother. And on a rainy afternoon, while rummaging for an old umbrella in the storage room, Elijah found something. A photo tucked between 2 books with broken spines. In the photo is a woman of color, short hair, wearing a striped shirt, standing in the middle of a path covered with dry leaves. No makeup, no posing, but her eyes looked towards the camera, direct, bright, with a thin smile. Behind the photo, a handwritten note in faded blue ink. JT, 23rd of May, 2014. Elijah sat on the warehouse floor, still holding the photo. He reread the note. Once. Then again, the letters slanted to the left, the strokes slightly shaky, but clearly familiar. He had seen that handwriting somewhere before, in his dad's notebook or on the labels of storage boxes. He wasn't sure what the note meant, but in his heart, a narrow crevice trembled slightly, as if someone had just tapped a corner of memory he had never set foot in. That evening, Elijah sat on his bed, the photo face down under his pillow. His dad had just turned off the light and was leaving the room when he called softly, "Dad, I found a photo in the warehouse. Is it?" "Mom?" Andre stood still in the dark for a few seconds. He couldn't see his expression clearly, only that his dad's shoulders drooped slightly. "Which photo, my love?" "A woman standing in the middle of a path full of leaves. Striped shirt, short hair. Behind the photo it says, JT, 23rd of May, 2014. Andre walked over, sat down on the bed, but didn't touch the photo. He placed his hand on his son's leg. "Yes, that is a part of our family's past." "What does JT mean, Dad?" Andre pursed his lips, then shook his head very slightly. "It's your mother's name, Julia Thomas, just a familiar way of calling her. Your mother used to sign her name like that." Elijah nodded slightly, but he knew his dad wasn't comfortable. He didn't push. He just pulled the blanket higher. Andre stroked his son's hair, his voice low. "You don't need to understand everything, but if you want to know more, wait until you're ready, and I'll tell you." Elijah nodded, but in his heart he already knew. There was something his dad wasn't saying, not because he didn't want to, but because he didn't have enough courage, and if it was related to his mother. Then perhaps the memories of both father and son were incomplete. Elijah lay still after his dad left the room, holding the photo close to his chest, hugging it tightly after looking at it for a long time. His heart was happy that he finally got to see his mother, no longer needing to dream. He wasn't angry that his dad hid it from him, but in his thoughts he felt that his dad didn't want his mother's image to appear to him. He didn't know why, but surely his dad must have had a reason. The next morning, as Andre just stepped out of the room, Elijah pulled a chair next to the cabinet, took out his small notebook and opened a blank page, carefully clipped his mother's photo into it, and put it back. Throughout the following days, Elijah didn't ask any more questions, but he observed, silently. When his dad sharpened pencils, when his dad washed clothes, Elijah paid attention to every movement. One evening, when his dad was asleep, Elijah sat in the living room, the faint yellow desk lamp illuminating the fragmented words in his dad's notebook. Once he saw handwriting slanted exactly like the JT in the photo, slightly curved to the left, with a small hook at the end of the letter, like an unplaced question mark. In Andre's bedroom, under the bed, was still the old wooden box with a red lock. Elijah had never touched it, but now every time he walked past, he felt a little breathless. That feeling wasn't exactly curiosity, but more like something that belonged to him was being held back. One evening, while Andre was washing dishes, Elijah walked into the kitchen, holding his drawing paper. On it was a drawing of the house, but in the middle was a picture of the box, unopened. Only the lock was drawn thickly with multiple pencil strokes. "Dad," Elijah said, his voice small but clear, "if there was a door, and behind it was something that could help me understand Mom better, do you think I should open it?" Andre stopped his hands under the faucet. The water was still running, the soap suds slowly flowing down his sleeve. He didn't look at his son right away. He just reached out and turned off the water, drying his hands on the towel hanging by the sink. Then he sat down on the chair opposite Elijah. Andre let out a long sigh, then said slowly, "Eli, the past is not something we carry with us or keep looking back at. If it's old things, let them stay there. Don't ask me about Mom anymore. I don't feel comfortable. Please understand me, okay?" Elijah looked into his dad's eyes. He didn't reply anymore. Didn't ask any more questions. That night, Elijah couldn't sleep. Not because of anything specific, just a restless feeling inside him. His eyes closed, then opened again. His hand kept tracing the small fold at the edge of the pillow. After a while, he got up, gently pulled back the blanket, and walked barefoot into the hallway. His father's door was never completely closed. Andre used to say, "I leave it ajar so you know I'm always here, and so I don't miss any sound, no matter how small." Elijah didn't remember how many times he had heard that sentence, but every night when he saw the faint light spilling from the crack in the door, he felt reassured. He intended to knock, as he always did when he went to sleep with his father during heavy rain or nightmares. He thought about the evening. Perhaps he felt guilty, wanting to go and hug his father to sleep to comfort him. But this time, as he approached, he stopped. Through the slightly open door, Andre was sitting on the floor, his back slightly leaning towards the desk lamp. A wooden box was placed in front of him, neat, dark brown, with a small red lock on the side. Elijah had never seen that box before. Andre opened the lid of the box with an old key, pulling out a stack of papers tied with a fabric string. Then he gently took out a few photos. He looked at them for a long time, his eyes not sad but full of emotion, as if every line in those photos was recalling something he had had to keep hidden for a long time. Elijah couldn't see the photos clearly, but instinctively he guessed. They were photos of his mother. He wanted to see them too, not to question or force his father to tell him everything. Just, he wanted to see his mother, longed to see her. Elijah quietly returned to his room, but his sleep that night was fragmented. Sometimes he dreamed of his mother having curly hair like him. Sometimes he saw those eyes, strangely similar to his father's. Every time he woke up, the red box appeared in his mind like an unopened door. The next morning, while his father was making coffee, Elijah sat at the table pretending to read a book, but he didn't turn any pages. In his mind, a plan had begun to form. No rush, not tonight. Maybe on the weekend, when his father went out to fix the air conditioner as usual. He knew how to pick a lock. He had learned that trick from a friend at school with just a small paperclip and a little patience. Elijah didn't want to take anything, just wanted to borrow, like borrowing a part of his mother for himself. And if he was lucky, he wouldn't drop any photos. Leave no trace. He would open that box like opening the palm of memory and hope that what he found wouldn't make his father turn away. On Friday evening, he went to bed earlier than usual, but didn't sleep. He counted his father's footsteps in the hallway, heard the sound of washing dishes, the sound of drawers being pulled out and closed. He wasn't sure what he was waiting for, a slip-up or a signal from courage. On Saturday morning, Andre said he would go to Mr. Callahan's house, a regular customer who needed his malfunctioning air conditioning fixed. "It should take about an hour," he said, grabbing his jacket and the bunch of keys hanging by the door. Elijah replied, his eyes not leaving the storybook in his hand. When the door closed, Elijah didn't get up right away. He sat motionless to the point where he could hear the ticking of the wall clock. In his chest, his heart beat cautiously, as if every step he was about to take would leave an indelible mark. He walked very slowly towards his father's room. The door was still left ajar as always, but this time it felt like a boundary between what he had known and things beyond imagination. Elijah gently pushed the door. In the room, everything was as it was. The pillow neatly folded, the sheet smooth, the glass of water by the table not yet empty. But what he cared about most right now was lying deep under the bed. He knelt down, took a breath, and gently lifted the bed skirt. The wooden box lay there, dark, silent, as if it had lived there longer than this room. The tiny red lock stood out against the wood. Elijah wouldn't know if he opened this box. A part of his heart would never be the same again. He stood up, took out the paper clip he had carefully hidden in his pocket beforehand. His father said he would go fix Mr. Callahan's air conditioner. It should take about an hour. To Elijah, an hour sounded like a very long time. But he forgot one thing. He was just a 12-year-old boy and had no experience unlocking things. He tiptoed the box out, sat down on the floor, and pulled the curtain just enough for some light. He held the paper clip as if it were a scalpel. Twist a little, hold it, then insert it back at a 45-degree angle. He recalled his friend's instructions. It sounded easy. 10 minutes passed. Elijah still couldn't get past the first step. Sweat beaded on his forehead. He took a deep breath, tried again. 30 minutes later, The paperclip was bent out of shape. A sigh. Then, the sound of the door lock turning. Elijah jumped as if electrocuted, quickly shoved the box back under the bed, and covered it with a cloth as if it had never been touched. When Andre pushed the door open and walked in, Elijah was sitting in his room, pretending to do homework, his heart still pounding like a drum. "I'm home," Andre said from the living room, his voice as light as usual. "Yes," Elijah replied, his voice almost trembling slightly. First attempt failed, but that didn't mean giving up. Sunday. Andre said he was meeting an old friend at a cafe outside of town and asked if he wanted to come along. Eli said he wanted to sleep in, but in his head another drum beat sounded. Opportunity doesn't knock twice. As soon as the sound of the car faded, Eli started to move. Not in a hurry, but strategically. He wore a long-sleeved shirt to wipe away fingerprints, unnecessarily professional. He prepared 2 paper clips, one main, one backup. He even put a cookie in his mouth. Just to stay calm. And then, the important discovery. Last time, he had turned the lock cylinder in the wrong direction. This time, when Elijah turned it the right way, very quickly, a very small click sound was heard. The lock sprang open. Elijah reached out and lifted the lid of the box, inch by inch. The light in the room filtered onto the wooden surface, reflecting into the box like light shining into a room that had been closed for many years. The first thing that caught his eye was photographs. Not the old faded kind, nor radiant family photos next to a birthday cake. They were portraits. Simple, clear, a woman of color, her eyes looking directly into the camera. Striped shirt, sitting upright, short, neat hair. Elijah's hand trembled as he flipped to the next photo. Still the same person, but from a different angle. Then another photo. The person sitting next to a cup of coffee, her gaze slightly melancholic. He smiled softly. "Mom," he thought, feeling his heart soften as if soothed by that gaze. Below the photos were some papers. Elijah intended to skim through them. But then he looked again. Large printed words. Endocrine evaluation report. Another line. Hormone therapy, week 8. Hospital name, medical record number, and full name Julia Thomas. Elijah frowned. He didn't understand what they said. He flipped further to a small notebook, leather-bound, faded to a dark brown, with stitching slightly uneven at one corner. He opened the first page. June 24th, 2016, 1 year after Eli's first birthday. The first day I saw myself reflected correctly in the mirror. Not because of a new face, but because I had begun to step out of the mirror I had not dared to look into for so long. He stopped breathing, his eyes fixed on the page. The first time I was called by the correct pronoun, I didn't cry. I just nodded, because something, deep in my chest, finally stopped tensing up. Eli continued to read the following pages, a miserable life of his parent recreated through painful memories, of being humiliated, of being cursed by family, of being forced into marriage with a bad man, of being treated like a slave of color, of being physically and mentally tortured, and then having to become pregnant, alone, with nowhere to return. Elijah, I will call you that when you are born. Maybe no one will protect me. Maybe I cannot save my own life, but rest assured, I will try, become strong, to protect you, to protect your world. You will live with your head held high. Trust me, little Eli. Elijah turned the page. I don't know if you will understand this journey later, but if one day you do know, I hope you understand. I didn't change to escape, but to live true to myself so that you can have a better life. And a photo was clipped in the notebook, Eli's mom holding Eli in her arms. Elijah stood still, one hand holding the notebook, the other placed on his chest, as if he needed to keep his heart rate steady. He burst into tears, the tears streaming down his face, his choked sobs mixing with the flow of water rolling down his cheeks. But what welled up inside him was unlike any emotion he had ever felt. A mixture of shock, dizziness, disbelief gradually turned into a feeling of pity mixed with guilt as he recalled the times he had tried to ask about his mother. each time forcing his father to relive that past. His mother, the one he had longed for all this time, was actually the one who had raised and cared for him, always close by. Elijah didn't know how long he had been sitting there. The light in the room had changed angle. The fabric curtain gently flipped with the early afternoon breeze, creating a silent, blinking rhythm on the wall, like a clock without numbers. Elijah closed the notebook, gently, carefully, as if closing a door with a soul inside. That afternoon, when Andre returned, he called out, "Eli, my son!" Elijah called back, "Yes, I'm here." And then he ran to hug his father. He hugged him for a long time. His father felt something was a little different, but didn't think too much about a small hug from his son. The next morning, Elijah woke up earlier than usual and sat down in a chair. In front of him was a cup of tea still steaming. He held it with both hands, not because it was hot, but because he needed to hold on to something fragile. Andre returned, placed a plate of eggs in front of his son, and nodded slightly as a greeting. Elijah smiled, a smile as thin as the edge of a folded napkin. Neither of them said anything wrong, but Elijah didn't look his father in the eye. Every question from Andre, "Do you want toast or a sandwich?" was answered with, "Whatever you like, Dad," or "Either is fine." Andre washed the dishes longer than usual. The water in the sink was still running, even though the soap suds had long gone. Elijah left the table, stood a few steps behind him, wanting to say something. A thank you, or an apology, or simply, "I know." But any word seemed redundant. Between the two of them, there was no silence, only movements that were no longer in sync. One person's head tilt didn't meet the other's gaze. The answer came a beat too early or too late. Both knew something had changed, but neither knew how to bring it back into rhythm, or if they should bring it back. Elijah walked out of the kitchen without turning back. But as he touched the doorframe, Andre said softly, "You ate a little less than usual." He stopped. A beat passed. He replied, I'm full." Saturday afternoon, Andre told Elijah to bring a jacket. "Come out with Dad for a bit," he said, softly like a reminder. It had been a long time, busy making money. He hadn't spent time doing something with his son. At the Loudoun Community Center today, it was packed inside. Dark-skinned faces, some young, some old, and a few cautious glances, as if they weren't used to someone genuinely wanting to listen to them. Jasmine Crockett stepped onto the stage in an earth-tone canvas jacket. There were no sensational banners, just a handwritten sign behind her. "We don't have to wait to be recognized." Her voice was deep, clear, and not strained. "I am Democratic Representative Jasmine Crockett, and today I stand here not to say we are victims. I stand here to remind us. It's time to stop asking permission to exist. You don't need anyone's permission or right to decide your life just because of your skin color. You don't need anyone to conclude whether you are normal or strange just because of your gender. You just need to know you are living as yourself, and the truth is not to be hidden. The truth must be named. Anyone who has ever called you the wrong name, you don't need to react. You just need to stand up and say your name again, even if it's just for yourself to hear." Below, a few claps, then louder, then stopped. Crockett continued her speech. Andre sat in the fourth row. His shoulders were slightly slumped forward. Elijah sat next to him. He glanced at his father, and for the first time he saw Andre exhale heavily, as if he had just let go of a burden he had never named. Ms. Crockett continued, "You don't need to forgive yourself for living authentically. You just need to know the world has to learn to call you by your right name, and if they can't, then I will be the one to start." Andre bowed his head, then nodded slightly. No one made him do it. No one was looking, but Elijah saw, and in that nod he understood. His father had just been touched by something no one, not even himself, had dared to touch for so many years. Miss Jasmine Crockett finished, looking at each person slowly. "I know. Some people here don't dare to stand up, to bravely defend themselves because you know your voice doesn't carry weight. I can't walk with you all the way, but if you need someone to listen, or at least believe in me, even if only through a piece of paper, then write. Send it to my office. I will listen. No one will be ignored." Her gaze made many below feel emotional. I don't promise to change the world for you, but I promise to help you no longer have to carry the most righteous thing in your life by yourself and feel guilty. Elijah lightly squeezed the armrest of the chair. That sentence, it wasn't just for him, but it fit perfectly as if someone had just stitched the crack in his heart with a thread that understood his language. On the way home, as Andre drove through the trees changing leaves, Elijah was pensive, thinking about something, and unconsciously smiled. Andre saw it and felt happy too. A week after the talk in Loudoun, among the stack of mail delivered to Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett's desk, one letter stood out, not because of its appearance, but because of its absolute simplicity. No printed letterhead, no embossed postmark, just a slightly worn ivory paper envelope with neat childish handwriting to Ms. Crockett. My dad needs your help. Sender, Elijah Thomas, 12 years old. No school address, just the simple line, Loudoun Town. Ms. Crockett opened the letter. No formal greeting, not presented in a template, but those simple lines made her pause for a long time. I know my dad's past was my mom. My dad is transgender. He always hid and hated that past. But I don't hate my dad at all. I love my dad very much. I want to help my dad. I just don't know how to say it. So my dad won't be sad. Jasmine read it all. Her hand lightly touched the edge of the paper, as if afraid of wrinkling some young piece of courage. She picked up her pen to write a reply to the boy. Her familiar purple ink. Neat. Gentle. A few days after receiving Ms. Crockett's reply, Eli was overjoyed after reading it, a mischievous glint in his eyes suggesting an idea. The following Monday, the school held a storytelling competition for students with the theme My Hero. Eli signed up to participate, he invited his dad to watch, and his dad was very happy and willing. That afternoon when the program started, Elijah couldn't hide his anxious expression. His dad, Andre, saw it and held his hand, encouraging him with the familiar phrase, "Just do your best. I believe in you." Immediately, Eli's spirits lifted significantly. He walked onto the stage with empty hands. No slides, no printed papers like the other students. Just a folded piece of paper tucked in his pocket, and a heart trying not to beat too fast. He looked around the auditorium, then bowed, small but sincere. My name is Elijah, and today I will tell you about the hero in my heart. He looked up slowly. That person is not tall, doesn't have a cape, doesn't do anything particularly special. A few small laughs rippled through the audience. But that person cooks breakfast for me every day, sharpens my pencils every morning, and never locks the bedroom door when going to sleep, because that person doesn't want me to feel scared or lonely. I call that person Dad. He smiled lightly, a smile like a ray of early spring sunshine, young but full of warmth. I used to ask about Mom. Dad said Mom passed away, but I still often imagine what Mom looked like. Sometimes I ask Dad what Mom liked, what Mom hated, and strangely, I find Mom is very much like Dad. Then one day I secretly opened the red box that Dad kept under the bed. Inside were photos, there was a diary. And there's a truth that you've never been told, but I think you've kept it for a long time. You used to be Mom. You are transgender. You hate talking about the past because your past, as Mom, as a woman who was scorned, rejected by her family, and in a hellish marriage. You wrote that you were weak, unable to protect yourself, but I see you as stronger than anyone. You are the best superhero I've ever known. You are the bravest person in this world. I've never wanted to replace you. I want you to be proud, and I want you to be recognized. Not because of your gender, not because of your skin color, but because of how wonderful a person you are. And you know what? The day you took me to see Mrs. Crockett's inspirational talk, perhaps that was the most meaningful day for me. Thanks to her, I have the courage to stand here and hope everyone knows about my dad, and I believe everyone will understand you, understand those who have lives like yours. They have also suffered, but have also tried to reach towards the light, and you are my light. Please smile more. I will always hold you tight, my dear Dad. The whole auditorium was silent, as if something had fallen. Not a sound, but a feeling of being touched deep in the heart. Then a round of applause. A parent stood up, then a second, and then everyone accompanied by cheers for Eli. The boy did not hide his pride. It was his dad who taught him courage, to live authentically and kindly. Every word he spoke was like a gentle tap on the heart of the man standing at the back of the auditorium, where he quietly wiped away the tear that had just fallen down his cheek. He walked off the stage, going straight towards the row of seats, where Andre was sitting. Elijah said nothing, opened his arms and hugged Andre tightly, whispering something that made him smile, the happiest smile anyone had ever seen. Afternoon gently fell over the schoolyard. The sun spread honey on the stone steps, golden and warm like a person's heart. The storytelling competition had ended, but its echoes still resonated in the father's heart. Elijah ran towards his dad. He reached out and took his hand. The small hand squeezed the hand that had been through so many storms, but was now trembling with emotion. They walked amidst the brilliant sunset. The afternoon sun slid onto their shoulders, casting long shadows of the two of them. Each step seemed to carry a warm happiness spreading in their chests. The father bent down, his eyes sparkling as he looked at his child. Eyes filled with so much love, gratitude, and a little surprise mixed with pride. The boy smiled, a radiant smile. Their hands were still clasped tightly, not letting go. Between them was an invisible thread, woven with understanding, acceptance, and unconditional love. That handshake was not just the closeness between two people, but a gentle yet proud affirmation that they are a family. They don't need to be like anyone else. They just need each other. The wind gently brushed past, rustling the trees along the road, as if whispering congratulations for a happy afternoon. And amidst the brilliant sky, the father and child, hand in hand, their hearts full of light,